For more on the potential economic impact of the Hong Kong protests, let's bring in our guest, former U.S. Ambassador to China, Max Baucus. He recently returned from a trip to Hong Kong. You got out of there anyway, Max. Not everyone can do that now in terms of departing flights. Looking at what you're seeing, are you apprehensive, anxious, nervous? You've been there a lot. You know exactly what's happening. Is it going to get worse from here, do you think, in Hong Kong? And how bad could it get?
My sense is it'll get a little bit worse. I think the protesters, they got wind at their back. They've tasted victory. They've slowed things down, and they feel pretty good about how far they've gone. There's a lot of sympathy among the Hong Kong residents that I talk to when I'm there. They'd say, boy, let's urge them on. Let's urge them on. On the other hand, obviously, China is very concerned, mainland China, and China has to save face. They just can't give in to the demands that the protesters are asking for unless there's some way that both sides can sort of save face. I think the business community is worth watching, looking at, because when I talk to the business community in Hong Kong, they're getting a little nervous that this is hurting business in Hong Kong. I talked to some companies that say they have a hard time recruiting families from other countries to come to live and work as employees in their businesses because of the unrest there. So I expect business to say, okay, enough's enough here, and I think they'll step in a little bit to try to help quell some of this dissent.
The overall state of our trade negotiations with China has worsened since last time you were on, I think. How bad is it?
It has.
Yeah, you think we're going past the election now?
I do. I think that because of the distrust both sides, the United States thinks that China doesn't live up to their deals and doesn't see China giving in much of the core structural issues. Same time, President Xi Jinping thinks that President Trump changes his mind all the time, so he's wondering if he can trust our president. I do think they're waiting. They'll continue talking. I think there will be talks in September. I hope that President Trump does not enact that threatened tariff in September. We'll see. But if he does, that's going to make it very clear that there will not be any result, any solution before the election.
Who has the Financial Times says the numbers are in, and it looks like China is the beneficiary. Other people say that China's economy is suffering worse than our economy, and that we have the upper hand. No one wins in a trade war. They say that, but do you think the evidence is clear? And I think both sides have some. President Xi has the election in 2020, and I think President Trump sees what's happening in Hong Kong. That's a lot of things for President Xi to be juggling right now, isn't it?
There's no question President Xi's got a lot to worry about, but they're tough. My experience is they're very, very tough. I think the Chinese respect strength more than any other people, and they can smell weakness better than any other people. And they're, I think, also in a position where, given although there's lots of data on both sides, that and I think this is hurting China a little more than it's hurting the United States. However, the Chinese are so tough, they can withstand more pain, in my judgment, than can Americans. There's a phrase in China, eat bitter.
What do you think about the current approach from Washington? It seems to be a good cop, bad cop strategy where you have the White House staying out of things, saying this is between Hong Kong and China, but then you have Secretary Pompeo and Secretary Esper from the Pentagon, who, when they're over in Asia, definitely seem to be rattling the saber. Is that effective?
Well, I think it's probably wise for the United States to not get too involved. The more it gets involved, the more it's going to upset China, and the more that's going to upset trade talks. And frankly, I don't know what we can really do in Hong Kong. We want to stand up for human rights there. We do. We espouse human rights. But I don't know what actual leverage we have. I think it's wise not to get too involved.
All right, Ambassador Baucus, thank you. We appreciate it, and we'll see you again, I'm sure, in the near future. All right.